Well, the storm is brewing in the land of Nintendo. If you were one to dislike game keycards like pretty much everyone does, well, there's definitely a problem that has been occurring recently. Now, I don't know if you'd consider this a problem or something that's really good for spin-off games, but it turns out that Pokemon Pokopia has pretty much outsold everything. It's completely sold out in Canada. If you walked into your store, you're gonna have like a very hard chance to actually find the game that you're looking for. So does this actually mean that game keycards are now going to be taking over? This is going to be the new norm for Nintendo games. I don't believe that that's going to be the case, but it definitely could show a shift in how Nintendo operates. So let's get straight into it. Now, let's start off this video by saying I think that Nintendo actual official games, like straight up Nintendo games, your Marios, your Zeldas, and all of those games are going to be on actual cartridges where you put in the cartridge and you essentially own the game. But when it comes to spin-off or third-party games, or even Pokemon as we've seen, there's definitely a chance that they're going to resort to keycards now, because the keycard allows you to make more money off of the game. So instead of paying about $16 to $20 for the cartridge itself, you can pay like roughly $2 for one that essentially doesn't have any fast storage on it and relies on the console itself. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily the worst thing in the world when it comes to third-party games. There's an exception. Third-party games, if they're all on keycards instead of having code in the box or having to only buy it on the eShop, I think that definitely is a great thing. But when it comes to first party games, when it comes to games that are 10 gigabytes or whatever the case may be, I don't think that they should be on a keycard. Nintendo has been planning on making smaller sizes. Who knows if that is going to fall through because of the current shortage in SSDs, current shortage in RAM, current shortage in pretty much everything when it comes to storage. So who knows if Nintendo is actually going to follow suit. But it seems like this might actually be the beginning of something else for Pokemon as a whole. If you looked at Pokemon Winds and Waves, we know that they put a lot of time and effort into that game. And we know that Pokemon Company really likes money. They like Mr. Krabs and they really like the balloons. But it seems like maybe they might just resort to the keycard instead of the game. Now, for me personally, I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like the only reason Pokemon Pokopia is on a keycard is because Game Freak actually got help. So they pretty much had to do like 40% could go to Koei Tecmo, 20% could go to Nintendo, another 20% would go to Game Freak, and another 20% would go to the International Pokemon Company. They probably had to split the revenue like that, so that's why you're seeing a game keycard. But if it's officially from the Pokemon Company, just Pokemon Company, Nintendo, Game Freak, whatever, they're probably just going to split the revenue evenly. That's why you would see that. Now, I'm personally not trying to defend game keycards, but let's just say that you worked at a company and this is how you would look at it. Let's just say that the game is $100. Well, then you have Koei Tecmo, you have Game Freak, you have the Pokemon Company, and you have Nintendo. Koei Tecmo, let's just say, did the most of the work on the game, which would get $40 on that $100 game, which would be 40%. Then you have Game Freak, Nintendo, and the Pokemon Company, each taking their share of $20. But then all of a sudden you have to buy the actual cartridge, which would be another $20. So each of them will be losing $5. So instead of getting your full $20, you're going to be getting $15 on the game that you worked hard. I don't know if these companies actually care too much about that. They're trying to make the most profit, but this is probably why the game keycard actually exists. As soon as the Pokemon Company gets their opportunity, they will make you pay more because they're not getting their full percentage. They're not getting the full amount. If it was the other way around, it would have just been 33, 33, 33. So they would have gotten around $33 each, or let's just say they had to pay for the cartridge. Well, then they would have gotten around like $25 each, which is still really good. So this might be the reason why maybe they don't want to go below $20 on revenue, but who knows. But let's just say, for example, Nintendo didn't have shares in the Pokemon Company, and it was just Pokemon Company and Game Freak, Koei Tecmo, or Koei Tecmo didn't make the game. Obviously, it would be on an actual physical cartridge. So, with this being said, I think for the next games, you don't have to be worried if it's not made by a third-party company or whatever, split by 4 different companies. It's probably going to be on your physical cartridge. So, your Marios, your Zeldas, your Splatoons, and those games that are actually made by Nintendo, no other company, most likely going to stay on the actual cartridge, because Nintendo knows that everyone likes just cartridges. They sell pretty well, and honestly, that is great. But then, just third-party games are probably going to continue on the keycard because it's a little bit expensive, like $20 to get yourself. They're not these mega corporations, but let's just say they are mega corporations. Well, it might just be that the game actually just doesn't fit on the cartridge. Like if you look at Elden Ring, the game is probably 100 gigabytes, so it wouldn't fit on the cartridge. If you look at other games that we got, like Assassin's Creed, that game wouldn't fit either. Cyberpunk was compressed really nicely, which that game did fit. So I guess it just kind of depends on the company, on what they want to do with it. Do they want to spend an extra $20 off their profit margin to get everyone happy? Hey, this game is actually on the cartridge. Or do they just not care and they're not sure if this game's actually going to sell? The case of Cyberpunk was definitely really interesting. I believe since it was an actual Switch launch game, it would have been on the cartridge, so they really like, hey, new Nintendo fans can get their hands on the sales because no one likes keycards. Everybody likes owning the game. That's really awesome. That probably could be exactly what happened here. But overall, I'm definitely determined that this is exactly what it is. There's nothing to be worried about. If the game is going to be split off to different companies, obviously going to be on a keycard. If it's not going to be split off, well then if the game's too big, going to be on a keycard. If the game's not too big, probably going to be on a physical cartridge. Look at Hades 2. Look at all these other companies. The reason why the game is so much more expensive as an actual physical cartridge is pretty much double for Hades 2 for the actual physical cartridge is because you have to pay that much more. So obviously they're going to pay it over to the consumer. But if you're okay with paying that for an actual cartridge, personally I think owning the cartridge is completely okay. It's the best thing ever. So obviously I would go ahead and get that. But overall, I think that this is definitely a very interesting site. I think that cartridges and game key cards, they're sort of in a mixed road. They're good for some, they're bad for others. Anyways, what are your thoughts on this? Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and with that being said, see you in the next one.